Go, oh, hi, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Retro Perspective. This is the gaming talk show where we discuss the past and the present of the gaming industry. This time I'm joined by Tom.
Hey.
And Luke. And today we'll be playing Final Fantasy X. Not the re-release, just the re-release. We could have played the re-release, but we decided just to play the re-release because I don't want to waste money.
I don't blame you.
Squaresoft as a company was my favourite game company for like years and years, up until probably Final Fantasy 12. What were your first Squaresoft games, guys?
Mine was 10.
Final Fantasy X, yeah.
Final Fantasy X?
Yeah, I bought it without knowing what on earth it was, and it was second hand for £4 in a game shop, and I just picked it up and thought, oh, I'll just spend this money, and it was the best £4 I've ever spent in my entire life.
£4?
£4.
Jesus,
yeah.
that must have been quite a while after it came out then. So what were your general first impressions of the game?
I was confused when I turned it on. I didn't know what was going on.
You just never played an RPG.
I'd never played an RPG.
Yeah.
I was always fighting games, racing games, so when you actually got given a character or multiple characters to move around a location from a third person, I had no idea what I was doing.
It's like, what's this? We're taking it in turns to fight?
Yeah, we're taking it in turns. What are all these menus? What do I do? And the first time I played it, I turned it off after 5 minutes because I was just angry that I didn't know what to do. And then I think about 2 weeks later, I turned it on again. I think I was really bored. I turned it on and I just played it solidly for probably 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, it's just since then been my favourite game ever. There's nothing really that's ever topped it.
The first thing that I was like attracted to was the story. Like I was just trying to pay attention to what was going on. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Practically, I avoided every single fight. Like I just flee from every battle. I didn't know that you had to like grind. So like I eventually got to a point where I think it was like the end of Macalania, like where you fight the Albed machine.
On the lake.
Yeah.
And
that is rock.
I just couldn't
that
beat
is so hard.
My characters were so underleveled. Oren was on about 900 HP.
What? So it's like basically the
like
same as what he was
when he started, pretty much.
in Luca.
Yeah. So let's talk about favourite moments of Final Fantasy X.
There's loads. For me, my favourite scene is in Guada Salam, where Seymour takes them through the dreams Anakin, what it used to look like 1,000 years ago, and everyone's kind of absolutely shell-shocked that this place existed, and because they're living in a place that's just been destroyed by sin, and yeah, there's nothing much left, so they're quite shocked to see that this place actually existed. Yeah, that for me is the best kind of visual kind of moment. But I don't know, like there's so many actual moments which
there are quite a lot. I quite like the beginning part.
Yeah.
Like when Tidus first arrives in Spira, the modern day Spira, and you didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And you're sort of learning with him, like as you go along.
It's the toxin. He's just constantly blaming everything on
learning
toxin.
and being high. And
that's a brilliant part about Final Fantasy X that hadn't really been done in Final Fantasy before. Like you were kind of just dropped into stuff
it's
before.
all thrown into it.
Whereas this game does a really good job of like setting everything up. It builds up and up to like, from really small scale story to just this massive thing where you're travelling all around. I think the pacing throughout the entire game is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's really good that I think whoever you ask this question to, they probably have a different moment in Final Fantasy X that they thought were their favourite.
I think in terms of the moment that kind of got me going the most was Oren's speech before fighting Unalesca.
That is my favourite moment.
Where he actually like loses his mind and he's like, he's like, now this is the time, and he goes absolutely crazy.
It's absolutely amazing.
I think my favourite fight though is the final Seymour fight, with that music. The Seymour Flux. Is it Seymour Flux?
Yeah, that
The one inside Sin.
The one inside Sin.
I think
Yeah.
that's Omnis, was it?
It might. Yeah. It
I
might
can't
be
remember.
actually.
There's so many names that you got.
I know what music you mean though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Black Mages performed it live,
yeah,
didn't they?
Black Mages, oh my god, what a band. So, least favourite parts of Final Fantasy X?
I don't know. I think the man on screen at the minute, Waka, kind of ruins quite a few moments for me. I think the I don't know. What do you think? There's not anything that really stands out.
Well, like I won't say that like the moments, the sort of more sort of recurring things. Like I thought that Seymour Guardo was a bit underwhelming as a villain.
Yeah,
I thought it could
as
have
a
been a bit
villain,
better.
definitely, yeah.
I think getting ambushed by a Great Marlboro is probably the worst moment
Well,
of the game.
That's the worst moment of anyone's life, isn't it? Basically, just get shit, it's a Marlboro, run away immediately.
When you're far away from like a save sphere in the calm ones,
Yeah.
and you're under leveled like Luke.
Yeah.
One of my least favourite parts is the Mi'ihen High Road, because it is so fucking long and you're just getting into fights like every 3 steps or something.
I just
Yeah.
use that as a training like ground.
It is good for training, but
Yeah.
the thing is, like, that they really needed to have more varied fights in that particular area.
Yeah.
Because you can sometimes get into the same fight over and over again for like 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you're fighting that much on one particular stretch of land, that is really a problem for me.
That land
it just becomes boring.
Is that bit before where they fight Sin with the Machina weapon on the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah,
On
that
Jose
is.
shot.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that the bit?
Yeah, it's just before the Jose.
Because I didn't like that bit. That was kind of boring for me. That rocky bit where you got.
Yeah, it is a bit of a dip.
Oh, the Mushroom Rock Road at the beginning.
Yeah. That one.
It's like a dip in the story, and it's made worse by the tediousness of having to fight all the time
Yeah.
on those stretches.
Yeah.
Also, like, does anyone remember the final boss?
Oh, you
Yeah.
Yu Yevon, yeah.
Where you can just Phoenix down him or something.
Oh, you mean-
like that.
Yeah.
No, I don't really remember much of it.
Well, I don't know if you know this, viewers, but you can literally use a Phoenix down on the last boss of this game, and it just kills him immediately. Final Fantasy's always had one boss in every game that you can use a Phoenix down on, and it just kills them immediately. However, I think they went a bit of a step too far by
Putting it on
going
the
for the
final
final
boss.
boss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when the final boss just has no personality whatsoever.
We don't even get a chance to see who he is.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
They killed him already. The game's over.
The game focuses so much on Jecht as a character that it just completely brushes over this Yu Yevon
Yeah.
character that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
It did get like put into the story quite late on, didn't it?
You have
Before
to.
you find out.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
do like some of the side quests to find out more about him. I think.
One of the other reasons I wanted to do this video is to show off the sphere grid, because let's just have a look at my
It's like the greatest thing ever.
lovely completed sphere grid here.
Oh.
How do we zoom out? Select. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
my God.
baby.
I've never had.
Time well spent. Man.
Yeah, definitely time well spent. I don't know of any other game really that's done a leveling system that's as dynamic as Final Fantasy X's, which is another reason why Final Fantasy 12 was so bad, because the license system in that is just absolutely atrocious.
I can't even fully remember what it was like. To be honest, it must have been that bad.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, it's rubbish.
To say it was directly following on from this, it's like just crazy. And then the Crystarium system from Final Fantasy 13, that's even worse. It's just one linear path when they already had this great idea of having this system where everything's completely open. It's like the job system, only you can mix and match whatever you want, basically.
There was 2 versions in this, wasn't there? There was a standard and there was an expert, wasn't there? I never used the expert grid. What was that like? Was it much different, or?
The difference is that with the standard grid, there's more key spheres.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's more to unlock. Not that there's more spheres to unlock, but there's more locked off areas.
Right. Okay.
So basically, it's a good idea to pick the expert because then you're using less key spheres, and also you have more freedom of where you move to.
Yeah.
So anyone can pretty much go to any other sphere route from the beginning of the game if you pick expert.
Wow.
So it's worth playing through the game again and just trying out the expert spear grid if you've never tried it before.
That sounds cool.
It's worth playing through the game again, like, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I just started it about 6 days ago, and I picked standard again. Kind of want to pick expert now.
So the weapons in Final Fantasy X, I think it's one of the best weapon systems that we've ever had in an RPG.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so customizable, and the weapons all look really cool and different as well.
They're all unique, aren't they?
Yeah, it's so good. And the fact that you could use all these different items that you gathered throughout your journey to create abilities for your customizable weapons, that's just really good. It's like so deep and customizable.
It's really dense. I mean, the armor as well, like having all the auto functions as well. Like, you start with like the really like basic kind of like more HP, more MP, better defense, and then you kind of go up and up until you have like all these auto abilities, which as soon as the game, a battle starts, you're like way ahead of the competition.
I think it introduces it slowly as well.
Yeah,
as the game goes on.
At a perfect pace.
It
introduces you how to customize it. And
in terms of weapons, though, while a lot of ultimate weapons are relatively easy to get, although quite challenging, Lulu's ultimate weapon in the most powered up form is like ridiculously difficult to get. You have to dodge lightning 100 times, is it, or something?
Yeah,
200 times. Yeah, that is just absolutely awful. And that's another thing that I thought when they re-released the game, like, they should remove that, really. Come on.
They should
just ridiculous.
They should knock it down to 100 and at least have a counter at the top, because you had to go into the shop every time to see where you were.
See how many you dodged.
When you'd come out, it'd negate it as well, so you had to do 100 more.
Yeah.
So I think there was a place that I saw online on someone else's YouTube video where you could stand by one tower and walk directly into a crater.
That's what I did,
It'd flash every time, so you just got to walk backwards and forwards 100 times. And it made it worse because the light was the thing that you should be tracking, and the audio was so misleading.
Yeah. The good thing about the weapon system, though, is that you can create your own ultimate weapon. It won't have the looks of the ultimate weapon, but you can actually just buy a blank weapon with four ability slots, and just create all your own abilities that are your favourites. And you can do that for every character, for both the weapons and the armour. So you can basically create your perfect version of any character that you want. And it's the same with the sphere grid. It's so customisable. Should we talk about the characters?
Yeah. We could talk about the characters. I think the characters are quite important because they tell the story. And
yeah, definitely.
A lot of people had a problem with Tidus as a main character. They thought that he was too whiny, that he was kind of a bit too emotional.
It's something that I've never really understood, because people also say that he is a really bad voice actor, the guy who voiced him. I don't really think so. He's not an amazing voice actor, but he delivers it really convincingly. Like his character, his voice actor is like perfect for that character, I think.
Yeah, I think as a character, like, you've got to put yourself in his shoes. He's just, his home has been invaded. His life gets completely changed. He gets spat out into some sort of ruins of a temple that he's never been to, and then onto a beach after loads of Albed, on a ship and stuff. He's bound to be a bit... do you know what I mean? He's bound to be a bit confused and a bit... he's getting completely thrown out of his his comfort zone, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not in his life of luxury like he was in his Machinicity.
Yeah. And it's a story that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, definitely.
There's so much relatable stuff in this whole story.
The reason why I like him as a main character is because he knows just as much as you do when you start the game.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
he's putting you into his shoes, basically.
And every good game should be like that. The main character should know as much as the player.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to be lost
Yeah.
Without having anyone to follow, really.
So Tom reminded me the other day of a few of the voice actors' little slip-ups, which, to be honest, it's not his fault.
No.
It's the person who was, like, directing the voices at the time. I always think this. If the person who's in charge of the voice actors doesn't say, okay, that was shit, do it again, then how are the voice actors meant to know whether it was any good or not? But there's a few lines in the game where Tidus says something just really fast for no reason.
Yeah, and he just says it at the most awkward moments as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Yuna's statue too, but I wanted to see it with Yuna by my side.
But I wanted to see it with Yuna by my side. And he kind of, like, he speeds up the remainder of the sentence. It was like, he's supposed to be, like, quite a dignifying moment in the story as a big scene. And he just kind of makes it a bit of a laughing stock, really. It's just hilarious.
Maybe they were about to go on a dinner break or something, and the voice director's just like, come on, hurry this line up, we've got to go. But, yeah, it's like this with a lot of Squaresoft games in particular. Like, the the voice actors don't seem to know the context of the situation.
Yeah. It strikes me that they've been given a list, like a huge script to read everything off of.
Yeah.
And they've not been in the same room as the other actors for the other characters. So you'd get, like, all of Tidus's lines, you'd get all of Wakka's lines, I'd get Oren's, and then we just, in separate rooms, just read them all and record them all. And then someone on a computer with, like, After Effects or Adobe Premiere or something like that would just be, like, grabbing them all and putting them in an order like a massive puzzle.
Yeah, without telling them you need to say it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just no direction.
I've seen behind the scenes footage of the Legacy of Kain series, and they do it perfectly.
Yeah.
They have people in a room together, all the characters, they're all speaking to each other just like normal. And yeah, like, if you can't do that, then
What's the point?
There's no point in just having one person do it on their own. So let's talk about Yuna, because I think the build up to the reveal of the fact that Yuna's gonna die at the end is, like, perfectly executed. It's, for a start, you find out when Yuna isn't even around, like she's been kidnapped or something. I think that whole idea of she's got this thing building up inside her for the entire game, you can kind of, looking back, it's so obvious. But at the time, I had no clue.
No, me
like,
neither. I was
did you
out.
guys know
about
it?
No,
Yeah.
No.
So
until it was revealed.
yeah, it's a really well built up twist, I think. One of the best in gaming history, probably.
Yeah. You kind of feel exactly the way that Tidus does. Like, that everyone else has kind of held it from you. Like, everyone has been looking at each other, even Riku, who's an Albed, has been kind of, like, conferring with each other. And they know exactly what's going to happen, but they don't bother at any point to tell you. It's almost as if, because he relives his father's path entirely. Like, he didn't even realise until, like, the very end what he had to do.
Yeah.
But she carries that weight on her shoulders, and she shows a lot of self-restraint in not telling Tidus to shut up, like, at multiple moments where he's just been like, yeah, we'll come back here after Sin's been defeated and we'll enjoy peace and quiet together. And it's like, well, no, you're not going to be able to do that.
What is it about Wakka that you despise?
I think the constant use of "ya" at the end of every sentence, it really annoys me, and he fits really well in the storyline because it's very religious orientated. Is the game? He's the most religious of the characters, I think, more so than Yuna, who is the summoner on a pilgrimage, and Lulu, who's done multiple pilgrimages before, which you learn that have failed. Wakka kind of follows these teachings so closely that he just kind of resents anybody that dares to even question or contest his opinion or the religion's opinions. and teachings, and it really winds me up.
I think it adds to the depth of his character.
Yeah.
But it also makes him really annoying.
Yeah. I think
Like-
he's a good character.
Yeah,
But he's my
he's a
least
really-
favourite personality out of them all.
It's good when you see him change as well, like later on in the story when it gets revealed.
And in 10-2 as well.
How he changes his mindset begins to change.
Yeah.
Like he hates Riku mostly.
Yeah.
He hates Albed, but
Yeah.
when he finds out that Riku is an Albed,
Yeah.
he begins to hate her.
Yeah.
And then he kind of like he comes around to sort of like understanding why that Spear is the way it is and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an interesting thing about his character is that it does develop.
Yeah, he does. He kind of he's struggling with himself for a lot of the game. He gradually finds out things like on the when you've just left the Mihen High Road and you're going to go and do the Operation Mihen section. Seymour speaks to them and he's like, "Oh, pretend that you didn't see them use the Machina." And
That's such a good moment.
pretend that I didn't say that you didn't see it.
See, that's one of the things that makes Seymour quite a cool
He's
villain.
he's a very slimy villain.
Yeah.
He's just brilliant in that way. The fact that he constantly returns, you can never seem to get rid of him as well.
That's where I think that Seymour is my least favourite.
Yeah.
Mainly because of
all the Final Fantasies or just of this game? Like
Of this
his,
game.
Is your least
yeah,
favourite
this game is my
main
least favourite character.
Yeah,
because of I don't know, like you can clearly sense that there's something up with him.
Yeah.
You can sense that he's kind of evil, but I think his whole appearance just kind of like washes that away a little bit. Like when I first saw him, I was like, "This is a bit of a joke."
Yeah.
Surely.
Well, when you first see him, he's on the ship in Lucca, isn't he? And he doesn't kind of like come across. He's not a villain, is he? At that point, like
No.
he's just the maester, and then he kind of, he gets worse and worse. And you kind of learn about him though, like he was like a child that was.
Yeah.
Like not accepted by anybody. He was like completely isolated by Spirit and Yevon and all the people of the land. So he was bound to
Pretty
go that way.
fucked up childhood, yeah.
Yeah, and then his mum was like gonna sacrifice herself. The only person that actually accepted him and that he needed in his life was gonna like sacrifice herself so that he could get a good reputation. But he would have died anyway, so no one would have gained anything. I mean, and then again, he wouldn't have been a villain, so we would have gained something, I guess, but,
Yeah, I understand the character, but I just don't feel intimidated by him. I don't feel like
No, me neither,
Like
he's
I
just a
hate
nuisance.
him enough. Like Jekt, I when I played the game and I first saw Jekt, I hated him. I proper hated him.
But on the screen,
He is an
His
arsehole.
appearance, his attitude, I just didn't like it at all.
Where Titus is just
I
looking
was
up
really
at the
looking
screen.
forward to beating him in the game.
Yeah,
And then, like, obviously Seymour was the villain.
yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I kind of understood that Seymour was going to be like the main rival, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was mainly Jekt that.
I just think,
Yeah.
in terms of bosses, there's so many final bosses. Like, there's Sin, there's the outside of Sin,
Yeah.
there's Sin, there's Seymour
Final
inside of
Aeon,
Sin,
Jekt.
all the Aeons.
All the Aeons.
all the
in the
Aeons,
entire
you
game.
Yevon. It's just like, there's about, it's like the ending of Lord of the Rings, it never ends, it's just constantly going on.
I like the fact that you fight your own Aeons and
Oh, I like that, yeah.
whatever you've built into them, like you can upgrade all their stats and stuff. Whatever you've built into them, that is what you are actually fighting.
Yeah.
But they never get to the point where they're even remotely as powerful as you, which is a bit weird. Like,
Yeah.
you can just literally destroy most of them in one hit.
Yeah.
If you've got break attack limit. So it was a really cool idea that I thought was just executed in a
It
really
wasn't executed
it wasn't
correctly, yeah.
executed right. Like, I like the idea that they set up the story as if this religion was kind of like the good guys in this war that happened that destroyed Zanarkand, what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
And then it all turns out to be completely false. Like, this entire religion is built upon a lie, that they were the good guys and this Yui Evan is like a god or something.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm hoping none of you are religious who are watching, but it's kind of mimics real life a bit, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
And how the religious side is like rejecting science.
Yeah.
That just completely resonates with me totally, because we all know about these people who don't believe in evolution and don't believe in... who believe the earth is flat and stuff like that, and it's just like... It's so dead on to what the real world is like that you just can't help but relate to these things when you're seeing them in this game.
Especially Waka as well, because he's like heavily...
Indoctrinated,
indoctrinated.
All the other religious characters in the game, you really feel for them, because they believe in this thing that is just, when you discover it, you know, it's all complete lie. Like, everyone is dead. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
The entire council is just dead, apart from one Ronso.
Yeah.
That Ronso
That one
finds
Ronso.
it. Yeah. He's just like, what the hell's going on? Everyone's dead apart from me.
And then even then he kind of like fights against
Why
it.
did they even make him a maester?
And then
he
he
didn't
died.
know what's going on.
Yeah. And then
They just had to have a maester of each race, I guess,
he
didn't
get
they?
killed anyway, doesn't he?
Seymour kills all the Ronso.
Yeah, he does.
Which,
apart from obviously Kamari, but
And the Blitzball team.
well, yeah. The
The
thing is,
Blitzball team still
apart
survive.
from them, they're still alive.
It's really weird.
that's kind of the one thing I don't get about Final Fantasy X's story, because in Final Fantasy X-2, you go back to Mount Gagazet and the Ronso are just like normal.
Yeah.
I think the game should have showed us a bit more of what actually happened then, because Seymour's just like, all the Ronso are dead.
Yeah.
I killed them all. And it's just like, well, no, you didn't.
And then if you go play Blitzball, their entire team is still
yeah, the
playing
entire
it.
Blitzball team is still playing Blitzball.
It's like,
You'd think they'd be a bit too devastated to be playing Blitzball when their entire
yeah,
race
you've got to
has
do it
been
for our
wiped out.
home team. Oh well, they're all dead.
Blitzball in Final Fantasy X, I think, is a very good minigame. Final Fantasy's always had different kinds of minigames, and this one's definitely one of the more deep ones. Not that it doesn't have its problems. Like you can go off to the right hand side of the map, and enemies will just wander around like without kind of coming towards you. Sometimes, like, look, they just turn round, and you can wait here for the entire match. So if you score one goal, then basically you've won, because you can just go to this area.
Choose the game, isn't it?
Yeah, and the only way you level up is by either passing or scoring. So you basically just want to pass like all the time to level up your team. And eventually that'll mean that your team is just far more leveled than the other team. Not to mention that the jack shot is just absolutely like... Watch this, watch the jack shot. So I have one person blocking me here. Shoot, jack shot. Okay, that's taken that guy out. It's boosted my shot level to 41, and the goalkeeper is 23. So it's basically, you know,
Not got a chance.
100% going in it, basically. I think they could have done a bit more with like the abilities to make it a bit more balanced.
Yeah. No, I just found it a bit annoying. Like when I mainly with the story, I hated the Luca goers. I think he's my least favourite character ever. The little red-headed guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Bixen or whatever his name is.
Bixen.
I hate him so much. Him and Mr. Keenock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate Mr. Keenock as well.
Absolute dickheads, yeah.
Trommel as well. But anyway.
Trommel, yeah,
with
definitely.
his huge arms. It's like a Stretch Armstrong. Anyway, I just found it really annoying. It kind of broke up the gameplay, which it should do, but I kind of wanted to be fighting the Albed when they kidnapped Yuna, and, you know, moving on with the pilgrimage and all this lot, and
rather
you were
than
kind
doing
of stuck in this sphere.
Tournament, you mean?
Yeah, kind of stuck in this sphere, messing about with a ball, and it's...
So we're going to do the jack shot again and just absolutely obliterate everyone.
My God.
Just no competition whatsoever.
I like the idea of Blitzball, though, like the opening cinematic where he's playing Blitzball. It looks amazing.
Anakin, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favourite CGI cutscenes of all time, is the Blitzball cutscene. So let's move on to Final Fantasy X-2, which I'm sure most of you watching absolutely hate. I personally think it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know where people are coming from.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who, no offence to the huge Final Fantasy, fan base, but a lot of them are probably very nerdy, like we can be, and probably don't want to play as 3 extremely feminine women.
Yeah.
Kicking everybody's asses, changing clothes, and doing all these kind of,
You could say it's fan service, couldn't you? With the 3 girls you play as.
Yeah, that's the point actually. Like, everyone seems to love that shit now, like girls changing costumes in games and stuff like that. But I remember when this game came out, pretty much everyone was just like, oh, I don't want to play as 3 girls.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. And I remember especially as well when Final Fantasy 13 was announced.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy 15 was announced alongside it, then Versus 13.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh, well, Versus 13 looks way better because for 1, you're playing as a guy, and for 2, it's just darker. And then, everyone was kind of saying, oh, I don't want to play it as a female lead.
This is more of a light-hearted game.
Yeah,
it is light-hearted, but when you start to actually play it, it's a lot darker than it initially lets on. I mean,
it has its darker moments, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first
Just the opening.
Yeah.
When I first saw this cutscene, I was thinking, what is she doing?
She's in a dress as well.
It is in a pop concert. I mean, I was disgusted when I first saw it.
I got tingles and everything. I was thinking, this is absolutely epic as hell. I'm going to love this game.
I can't agree with the opening sequence. I just didn't like the idea of a high summoner becoming
a pop star.
Becoming a pop star.
I think it's quite clever because if you notice there, it was like Yuna ? And it's like, you could take that as, whoa, Yuna's doing this crazy thing that we wouldn't expect her to do. But actually, what it means is that's not actually
it's
Yuna.
Not actually her.
So I think that's really clever. That
at the time I didn't know that. I was like, just
exactly. I think that's really clever.
And we can address the third character here.
Oh, Pain.
Yeah.
Having no real need to be in the game.
Oh no,
I
don't know. I quite liked Pain. She kind of filled in the hole that Oren and Lulu left for me.
I kind of agree with Luke because when I first saw Pain and as I got to know her, I started to think, why is this not just Lulu? Like, why is Lulu not here?
Yeah.
But then we do discover that she is pregnant, so obviously she's not going to be.
Well, her story kind of got resolved at the end of 10, didn't it? I mean.
Yeah.
But then again, it's kind of like, it always annoys me, things like this, when a new character is introduced in such a kind of. You've had such a massive story happen in the original game, and then you've got a sequel happen. It's like these characters were never even like mentioned. It's like they were just kind of living their own lives. Was she a crusader, or do you know what I mean? There's never anything kind of like that mentioned.
What do you guys think of the battle system? Do you like it or do you dislike it?
For me, I think FF10's battle system is the best.
Yeah.
I just love like the turn-based.
It gives you a chance to think, really.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to plan out what you want to do.
Yeah,
that's true.
This, you have to kind of just react, I think, a little bit more.
This kind of puts you on the spot a lot more. This kind of, you've kind of got to be thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead of what you're doing. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you're introduced with a new character that you don't know anything about, you've got to be concentrating on what she can do and the battle as well. I think it's just like too much going on, maybe at once.
I think that Final Fantasy X-2 has a very, very good battle system in terms of, if you look at all the Final Fantasy games, it's kind of a really classic Final Fantasy system that at the same time is completely different to all the other Final Fantasies. And that's why I like it. Like, you're both right, like it's really fast paced and you need to think really quickly, but that's one of the things that is so good about Final Fantasy X-2's battle system
for me.
And I can understand completely if you love Final Fantasy X's combat system, which I do. I think it's amazing. Not like in this one, but I also think that this one is just absolutely brilliant at the same time.
It's like an even faster paced version of the classic battle system, isn't it? Because everyone can attack
It's not
more or
bad.
less
Yeah,
at the
it's
same
not
time.
bad.
Everyone can
system.
attack at the same time.
it's whenever
everyone's
you're
moving
filled.
around.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy X-2 story, as opposed to 10's, is completely different because it's at its most enjoyable when you're completely ignoring the main storyline and just going and exploring Spirit and just talking to random people and doing side quests and stuff. So in that sense, I don't feel like the characters are anywhere near as strong. Like, they're all just kind of these random quirky characters that are just all light-hearted.
Yeah.
And the characters that are in the main storyline, like Barreleye and what's the other guy's name with the
Nuge.
walking stick? Nuge, yeah. They're all kind of boring and just like depressing and shit.
They don't seem like in the original game in 10. Everyone's got an agenda. Everyone's really driven. Everyone's like
It's very character driven. Is at 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
Sort of
everyone
focus
seems
on
to be kind
character.
of thrown together and they're just kind of there for the ride a little bit. Like no one knows what they're doing. Everyone's in like search of like Vegnagun. Spoiler. Like Vegnagun and Shuyin and everything that's going on the far plane, and nobody actually knows what is going on. And I think I agree with Jake. You kind of treat this as a game that's like you're going to see everyone. Just go around and visit people after you've defeated Sin. That's all I treat this game as. I mean,
Yeah. It's like the game is so light-hearted in general that when these main characters come into it, it's almost a contradiction to the tone of the game.
Yeah.
That these characters are suddenly like, oh, Vegnagun, it's the most powerful weapon that's ever been created, and if anyone gets their hands on it, it will destroy the earth and stuff like that.
Yes.
It doesn't make much sense in the end.
It doesn't make any sense at all because it's like no one ever mentioned Vegnagun during 10 at all. Like,
Yeah.
you've got Sin kind of messing around,
It's
and
like-
there's just Vegnagun buried. So why didn't we get Vegnagun
Yeah,
to destroy Sin?
That's a good point actually. Why weren't they searching for Vegnagun to destroy Sin?
Yeah.
The three sort of main antagonists, I guess, although they're not the serious antagonists, the more comic relief are LeBlanc, Logos, and Army. You fight them multiple times throughout the entire game, and the fights are always really, really like enjoyable, and the music is really good as well. It's like the game tries really hard to make these characters really, first of all, important to the overall story, because they're looking for spheres as well, and like you're competing with them to get these treasure spheres. But also build them up in terms of if you're going to fight them, you're going to be in for not only a fun fight, but sometimes a tough fight, because their abilities get like more and more ridiculously powerful as the game goes on, almost as if they're leveling up, you know, just like you are, because they're explorers as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a really organic part of the game that, you know, adds a lot of character to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of join up with them in the end, don't you? As well?
Yeah, they become good guys at the end. It's cool. Someone who's really good in this game is Machen, who at a certain point in the game you can choose to have like a 40-minute conversation with.
About everything.
Yeah, about the entire history of Spira and just everything in the entire game.
You see a lot more of them do in 10-2 as well.
Yeah, and I like that you can choose to just be like, I don't give a shit about all this stuff you're saying, or you can be like really attentive and say, yeah, actually I'm really interested in all this stuff you're saying, and you can choose to shake his hand as well. Like he says, would you mind if I shook your hand? And if you choose yes, you get like a more completion percentage in your game save.
She's like
Just
fulfilling
like-
his wish, haven't you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love little touches in games like that where it gives meaning to that interaction. Like, you can choose to say no, but if you say yes, it's like you've completed the game more somehow.
Yeah.
Just because of a little percentage marker on your save game score. So I have this walkthrough here. You could play this game without using a walkthrough, but I don't think it would be as enjoyable as it is with the walkthrough, which could, depending on your perspective, could be a good or a bad thing. I personally don't mind using the walkthrough, and I like it because There's so much hidden shit in Final Fantasy X-2. It is just unreal. More than any other Final Fantasy game, there is so much hidden stuff.
Yeah.
On top of that, New Game Plus, you can play you can play the game again, but you keep all your abilities and items and everything.
You can upgrade them further, can't you?
Yeah.
You just keep upgrading them.
And it's the first Final Fantasy to do that. Getting rid of that feature after having done it is something that's quite strange to me. Like, Final Fantasy 12 didn't have New Game Plus, and it's just like, why?
No.
Why not have New Game Plus when you've already done it in Final Fantasy X-2 and it worked so well?
It's as if they got a completely different crew of people just to kind of, you know, like, nobody works on 10-2, works on 12.
Yeah. I like that it's set out in 5 different chapters. Chests respawn on each chapter, and it gives the developers the opportunity, I think, to have characters say different things in each chapter.
Yeah.
Because, like, in a regular RPG, you can probably go back to, like, say, the beginning of the game, and the characters might just say the same things that they've already done. Whereas in this game, you can go back to an area in each chapter, and sometimes it's just completely different, and there's completely different characters and everything.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it works so well. I think they really thought about, like, the structure of the game and how it was played.
When you complete the game as just storyline on its own, I think the game's like 60% complete. So
Yeah.
that other 40% is just...
It's all side missions.
It's all side missions and things to collect.
No other Final Fantasy game before or after, or any other RPG for that matter, I believe, has as much content as Final Fantasy X-2. And that's a real achievement, I think. And loads of people diss the game, but at the end of the day, I personally believe it's one of the best Final Fantasies.
I mean, say what you will, I kind of treat it as something separate to 10. You know, I don't treat it as like a serious sequel almost.
Well, it's definitely not a serious sequel.
It's not a serious sequel. But yeah, as a game, in terms of gameplay and content, it's just fantastic.
One of my favourite side quests in Final Fantasy X-2 is the publicity campaign. Obviously, it's going to be tedious for a lot of people, but basically what you do is, in each chapter, you need to find loads of characters that you press square on, and depending on their personality, they will react well or not well at all to each of these slogans. So yeah, the first thing you want to do in each chapter is basically go around every single area again and just talk to every single person and see whether they are interested in this company that you've decided to do this publicity campaign for. And to be honest, the rewards you get are pretty shite. I can't even remember what reward you get, but it's not that great, to be honest.
It just makes no sense.
Otherwise, I would remember. But the point is that it's there, and the developers thought so hard about, like, having this side mission that lasts throughout the entire game, that in each individual chapter you can go and meet different people, say different things to them, and they all react differently. The Blitzball in 10-2 specifically is awful.
I've never
because
played it.
you're playing it as a manager. You're like a Blitzball team manager, even though all the characters are playing Blitzball, including Yuna and Riku, for no reason whatsoever. They're just playing Blitzball, and you're like, it's like Football Manager, where you're watching Blitzball matches happen, but you're not actually having any input in what's going on at all.
I'm surprised Square didn't make a spin-off called Blitzball Manager.
Yeah.
Well, actually
50.
release it, yeah.
Or whatever.
Oh, God.
There's the excavation side missions, which is in on Bicknell Island. You can dig for treasure and stuff. And if you get all the treasures, it unlocks like one of the hardest bosses in the game, like the Machina thing, which I think is quite cool because you're building it all up and then you have to fight it, and basically once you fight it, it gets destroyed and you have to build it up again, even better every time. So we're in the Sphere Break tournament of Chapter 3, by far the worst section of the game, because to get the best dress sphere in the game, you have to beat this tournament. It is so incredibly random that you're almost never gonna win. So you end up having to just do it over and over again until you win. It's basically a maths puzzle game. So you're presented with a number, and you have to make up a multiple of that number with the coins that you presented here. All these coins are random, apart from the middle 4. So you have to make it using the maximum amount of silver coins as possible to make up the quota of 20 silver coins, which you can see in the top left. The thing that makes it really hard is that each character that you play has an arbitrary time limit. Like Shinra is the final opponent of this tournament, and his time limit is something like 30 seconds for the entire round. And you need to get this ridiculous quota in like 30 seconds. It just makes no sense that it would be that difficult. Competing in this tournament just incredibly tedious, especially when it's essential for 100% completion of the game.
You've got to do
and
it.
to get the dress sphere that you want. So while Final Fantasy X has some of the best music ever created, Final Fantasy X-2 I find has really terrible music.
There's just no thought behind it. It doesn't kind of engage you with the game. I mean, it kind of makes me. It backs up the point that the story, it doesn't actually really mean anything because the music doesn't even gel with the story.
Yeah, it's just too light-hearted, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. I think the only bit of music I do like is when you've got to fight the Dark Aeons. It's like a nice piano.
There are some great tunes. I think the Vegnagun fight is a really good song. But overall, I think what we're getting at is Final Fantasy X. The music just fit the world.
Yeah.
Everything about it just fit perfectly, and it brought forward emotions that were present in the storyline.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy X-2's music just doesn't even. It doesn't comment on anything, and it doesn't fit the world at all, I don't think. We're going to discuss a bit about the re-releases of Final Fantasy X and X-2. Because they've just re-released it on Steam, as well as, PS4 and PS3 now. One thing that I immediately thought when I first heard that they were going to re-release it is do an online Blitzball. Give us the option to play this Blitzball game online against other teams that have gone out into Spira and found their own team members and stuff, because it's quite cool, to go around Spira and find all the different members, and they all have different abilities and stats and stuff. How about expanding that and giving us that online where we can play us against other people?
Yeah.
That is such a brilliant idea, don't you think?
Yeah, that'd be a really cool idea.
With the big push of online games lately, you'd think that, that'd be some of the...
It'd be a no-brainer, really. I mean, I don't know why they do it. I mean, that raises a point for me as well, like, the depth of this game, like, compared to, like, modern games. You if this game was being released, like now, this year...
Yeah.
The content, they would probably half it and then bring out probably 6 DLCs at 15 quid a chuck. I mean, the Omega Ruins would be a DLC.
Yeah.
And so would the all the Dark Aeons and all the Blitzball and Penance and all these other things, which are just incredible.
Pay £9 and fight ridiculously difficult enemies.
Yeah. Whereas this game, I paid £4. Yeah, fair enough, a couple of years later. But I've been playing it for like 6 or 7 years. Well, no. Nearly 9 years or something now.
Yeah,
play it again and again and again and again. So
yeah, you can just play it on
much,
PS2 and it's just not a different experience at all.
So much replay value.
Yeah, and I mean,
playing it over and over.
That's the thing. I mean, you don't. I mean, there's a lot of people that probably didn't have a PS2, which is a bit weird. But you've got to think about people.
It is weird. It is
people
weird.
who are probably younger than us that didn't have a PS2 because they're too young or whatever. Who had a PS3 and a PS4, so they're going to get it for that if they actually, stop playing Call of Duty just to play it. But the music kind of put me off a little bit. Like, it sounds totally different, and, to me, it doesn't sound as as good as the original.
Yeah.
The normal battle music sounds better. Like you were on about with the guitar, that sounds a lot better.
I absolutely agree, yeah. I think the normal battle music sounds better, but that's kind of the only track that sounds better. The rest of them either sound different or worse.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really make sense. Like, why
change
did
it?
They didn't even have to change it in the first place. Spend that money on doing the online Blitzball, you know what I mean? Square released this on the PS3. I was quite happy to buy it again. I like looking at nice graphics. It's one of my favourite games. I obviously have it on PS2, but I bought it again on PS3. I got the Platinum Trophy for Final Fantasy X, and I'm planning on getting it for 10 too, but it's going to take me years. The point is, a few months after I bought it on PS3, they said, oh, guess what? We're releasing it on PS4. And it's like the same price as what I paid for it on the PS3. How cheeky is that? You know,
I should have had that thought out beforehand.
They should have said, okay, we're going to release it on PS3 and we're going to release it on PS4. Take your pick. You're not feeling like you're wasting your money then. And like to now say, okay, we're going to release it on Steam. I've seen comments on the internet saying, oh, I love Square. Square are amazing. They finally released it on Steam. Now I have it on PS2, PS3, PS4 and Steam. And it's like, why would you waste your money like that? I mean, I understand. It's completely your decision if you want to buy it 5 times.
If you want to spend £100 on
if you want to spend over £100
on the same game.
There are so many amazing games out there. And I just find it really cheeky of Square to stagger this release and not include features that they 100% should have included, like the online Blitzball. I'm beating a dead horse now, but you know. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, definitely. Because they made 12 and they made 13 and then however many 13s there was. Or how many was there? It was like 3 or 4. 3.
Yeah.
So they made three of those. And now they've got 15 coming out. But the entire time, the whole of Square's audience has been asking for an up-to-date 7, which I'm a bit kind of torn about anyway, because you kind of just leave it alone. The game's legendary. I mean, no matter who you are and what game you like, that game is legendary. You should just leave it alone. Don't remake it. They had Advent Children as a little film. Leave it alone. They're just remastering the old games and putting them on the PlayStation Network just to try and kind of keep the audience that they're letting down with the modern games happy. That's the way that I feel about it.